The Fossey Gorilla Fund International is dedicated to the conservation and protection of gorillas and their habitats in Africa. To be able to accomplish our mission, we have developed an integrated conservation model which has 4 pillars. The first one is daily protection. Daily protection is done through the presence of our staff in the park. So we have trackers who go to the park 365 days a year. Their work is basically to monitor the gorillas, to follow each and every gorilla groups that we are in charge of. Also, we have 2 dedicated anti-poaching teams who are in the forest also every day, removing snares and other threats to gorillas and other animals of the park. Second one is scientific research. We are the world's longest running research center. We have been studying mountain gorillas for over 50 years. Our research work doesn't focus only on the gorillas, but also biodiversity of the park. So we want to be able to understand the gorillas and their ecosystem. Information that comes out of the research that we do really informs conservation policies in this country. Pillar number 3 is training of future conservation leaders. We're able to reach over 400 students from higher learning institutions in Rwanda. The work that we do is basically to provide skills to young scientists that would really enable them to continue the work of the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. Our 4th pillar is helping communities. This is important because we know effective conservation requires support of local communities. We work closely with communities who live close to the gorilla habitat, and we support their education, health, and also provide alternatives, because some of these communities are affected by poverty and they depend on park resources. So we want to be able to provide alternatives so that they don't go in the park. It is such a great honor to be the first Rwandan director of Karisote Research Center, to follow in the footsteps of Dian Fossey and all these other great scientists, all these other great conservationists. But I'm not the only Rwandan who works at Karisote Research Center. In fact, 98% of all our staff are Rwandan.
We have one more video here that is a little bit more specific about what we're going to be talking about today. Conch, thank you for the donation. Here we go. Okay, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. It's been a while. It has been a while. It has been a crazy couple months here getting stuff rolling with Alveus, but the Conservation Cast is back once a month. It's been too long, I know. It was every week, now it's once a month. Blackjack Pro, yeah, what's up? Okay, sorry. So we have a big podcast today. We're talking to Tara Stoinski, who is the CEO and president and chief scientific officer of the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. Nate, thank you for the $15, which is a really big deal. This is our 3rd time. This will be our 3rd time supporting the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. They were introduced to us by Dobbins. Molly, thank you for the $155. Nate, thank you for the $15. So your donations are going straight there today. They're plugged into my account. So any donations will be going to them. This is one of the most respected, one of the strongest conservation organizations on the map right now. I'm super, super honored to be talking to Tara today. It's a pretty big deal. MLaw, thank you for the $10. They've been in action for over 50 years. They're super successful. They, like you saw in those videos, they do scientific research, they do daily protection of those gorillas, they educate conservationists, and one of my favorite parts about this organization that I emphasized the last time we talked to them was that they're really big on helping communities. Their motto is helping people, saving gorillas. And they really understand that for conservation to be effective, Crowway with the $10, Johnny with the $50, thank you so much. In order for conservation to be effective and for it to be sustainable, they really have to get into those local communities and educate those people. So that's one of my favorite parts about this organization. Really, really pleased to be able to talk to them again today. Danza with the $25, thank you. Monkaru with the $200. Okay. Thank you. Spiderland with the $10, thank you. Monkaru, you're insane. So another cool thing about today, let me introduce Tara a little bit first. Okay, so I already said she's the president, she's the CEO, she's the chief scientific officer. She's got more than 2 decades studying gorillas. She's got over 100 publications in National Geographic, CNN, NPR. She's all over the place, and she's really, really great. So we're super lucky there. And this is a super timely, cool podcast. And the reason that it kind of came together quickly is because they had a very special announcement for Earth Day. Riz, thank you for the $20. Crash and Burn with the $15. Thank you. And that announcement for Earth Day is so the Democratic Republic of the Congo has officially recognized three new community-managed forests. That's the Nakuba Conservation Area, and it's 1,300 square kilometers of space that are now able to be protected by those local communities. That equates to 321,000 acres. Closer to 322,000 acres. It's a ton of land. Warber with the 20, Drizzy with the 150. Thank you so much. And this is super important because this land is the only place that Grauer's gorillas exist on. Like you saw in that video, their populations have decreased by an estimated 80% over the past 25 years. And the Dian Fossey Fund has been working with the landowners of this space for since 2012. And they've signed a contract, or a 25-year agreement to help them develop and implement sustainable plans for these forests. So they are... Feels Warber with the... Where am I? Warber with the 20, Feels Timmy Man with the 10, Nim with 10, Archer with 20, Matt Dig with 20, Cal with 20, Molly with $3. Thank you so much. $626. Okay, insane. So they're really getting to the ground there, protecting the remaining habitat of these gorillas and making sure that the critically endangered Grauer's gorillas that we're speaking about today does not go extinct, because the next step after critically endangered is extinct. So the work that they're doing is absolutely essential in keeping the species alive. They had a big campaign for Earth Day where they had someone pledge to match a $50,000, up to $50,000 raised for Earth Day. I think last time I checked yesterday, they had another like $6,000 or something to raise. So we'll ask Tara today how much more they have if they haven't already reached that $50,000 goal. But we will see. And I think that is the gist of it. We're going to do a poll really quick here. Are you saying Tara or it's Tara? Well, it's Tara, Tara, but it's pronounced Tara. Actually, it's Dr. Tara Stoinski. We're going to do a poll here really quick, just to gauge a little bit so that we have some data for after the stream. Space is going to run that poll, and Voyage Since with the $5, thank you. While Space runs that poll, see how much do you care about the conservation of gorillas? So this is like your initial, before we have this conversation today, just your baseline. How much do you care about it? Be honest. If you really care, give it a 5. If you don't really care, or it's never really crossed your mind, give it a 1. Pick whatever you want, and then at the end of the podcast, we'll run that poll again, just see if it changed at all. And then there will also be a quiz at the end of the podcast, as always, thanks to Chuck. Chuck will be creating that quiz, and it's just based on my conversation with Tara today. Cool? Jackson with the $10. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, this poll is looking super healthy, actually. Wow. So far... Oh, wait, it's almost over. Your lighting is really dim. I know. I think the ISO on my camera is a little low from when we did the cooking stream. I have both my lights on, but I can't really get back there unless I take the whole camera off, so I didn't change it. Is it fine, or do you want me to change the ISO? Okay, 34% said 3. It's a neutral. 30% gave it a 5, extremely important. And then 28% said a 4. 4% gave it a 2, and 3% gave it a 1. Great. Good information. I'm going to screenshot this poll and put it in here. Space, I know this is so annoying, and I know there are better ways to do it, but this makes the most sense to me right now, so I'm just doing it this way. Okay, thank you so much for doing that. At this point, is there anything that I've forgotten to mention? I told her I'd call her 15 minutes after the hour. We're looking good on time right now. Anything? Introduce the guest. Introduce the org. Tell you where donations are going. Do the poll. Introduce the quiz. Thank you for the 1004. E96. Thank you for the $10. Okay. I will be back in a second then with Tara. All right? Give me like 2 minutes. Time for jammies. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yep.
Hi, could you turn your video on? And I can hear you.
Why is it not working? Let's see. Did that help? There we go.
All right. Let's make sure all this is working. Hold on. Chat, this always happens. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited.
Thank you for having me, Maya.
All right. Let's see. Chat, she's sat. Maybe flip your phone. She's on mobile right now.
I flip my phone, like turn it the other way?
Yeah.
You mean vertical or?
Yeah. Well, however you had it on the test call was great.
I hadn't moved it since the test call.
Okay, we can just leave it like this then. That's fine.
Leave it like this?
Yeah,
like
you're at least right set up. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, well, welcome to the podcast again. Thank you so much for being here. We kind of planned, I told my community we planned this kind of last minute, but I'm super excited because of everything yesterday. So if you want to just give yourself a little introduction, talk a little bit about the fund, and then we can just get right into talking about Earth Day and your guys' big announcement.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much. So hi, everyone. My name is Tara Stoinski. I am President and CEO and Chief Scientific Officer of the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. I have worked with gorillas for more than 26 years now, so pretty much my whole career has been dedicated to first studying them, then conserving them, and about years ago, I moved into a leadership role within the organization. So now I oversee a team of about 220 people based here in Atlanta, as well as Rwanda and Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, who are working to save the world's remaining gorillas. So we are the world's longest running and largest organization that is fully dedicated to gorilla conservation. We're very proud of that fact. We were obviously started by Dian Fossey, which if you're not familiar with Dian's story, I would definitely encourage you to watch Gorillas in the Mist. It's an amazing movie. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, and it really tells the story of how she went and started conserving these animals. You know, her worry was that they would go extinct before the year 2000, and instead they're the only great ape on the planet that is increasing in number.
Oh.
So, you know, that's a little bit about us. Hopefully you guys will have lots of questions and I can go into a lot more detail. But as you hopefully saw in the video, we kind of operate on 4 strategic pillars. Daily protection. We are in the forest 365 days a year, protecting individual gorillas and their families. Conducting scientific research. So we want to make sure that the conservation efforts that we do are based on sound science, as well as just studying gorillas and biodiversity because they're fascinating. And then what we call sort of the human side of conservation, and that's training the next generation of conservationists in Africa and beyond, and then helping local communities, really addressing the reasons why they're putting pressure on the gorillas' forest homes. So doing livelihood and food security initiatives, as well as a lot of conservation education outreach. And so our motto is helping people saving gorillas, because we know that for gorillas to thrive, the people that live near them must thrive as well.
That's so wonderful. I love that so much. I said that to you on the phone, I guess, last week. That is one of my favorite things about that organization. It's something that so many conservation organizations are unfortunately missing, but that's awesome. So speaking of that, that's a great segue to start talking a little bit about the Nakuba Conservation Area and what that big news is. You could probably explain it a lot better than me. So
yeah, I'd be happy to. So we started working in Rwanda to save mountain gorillas in 1967. That's when Dian Fossey went there. So we've been there for over 53 years.
Wow.
But in 2001, the organization made the strategic decision to expand. And so when we looked at where needs were, it was really in Eastern Congo. So just over the border from Rwanda, there's a second subspecies of Eastern gorillas. So just a quick gorilla 101. There are 4 types of gorillas. There are 2 species, and each species has 2 subspecies, so 4 types total. There are 2 in West Africa. We don't work with either of them. They're called the Cross River gorilla and the Western lowland gorilla. And Western lowland gorillas are actually the only of the 4 types of gorillas that you'll find if you go to a zoo. And then in Eastern Africa, where we work, there's the mountain gorilla. Those are the ones we've been working with for 53 years. And then there's the Growers gorilla, which used to be called the Eastern lowland gorilla, but it's now the Growers gorilla. So when we looked to expand, you know, we saw what was happening to the Growers gorilla population, and that is that it was plummeting. And so we made the strategic decision to expand over and start working in Eastern Congo. And if you're not familiar with the Eastern Congo, it's a beautiful part of the world. It's the eastern part of the Congo Basin, which is the 2nd largest standing tropical rainforest left on our planet. Incredible biodiversity. But it's a very challenging place. Basically, it's been mired in civil conflict for the last 25 years. It's estimated that over 5 million people have died, not so much from fighting, but just from lack of access to resources. It's got the 2nd highest rate of people living in extreme poverty in the world. And there's a lot of rebel group activity because, unfortunately, there are a lot of wonderful minerals there that we use for things like our electronics and others that people are mining. And so that means that there's just a lot of rebel activity. So not a lot of conservation organizations work there. And as a result, you know, the forest, which is beautiful, was being hunted. The animals were being hunted to extinction. So we decided to go and work with Growers gorillas. And most of them, unlike the mountain gorillas, where basically every single one lives in a national park, so they have some form of protection, the vast majority of Growers gorillas live outside of national parks. So they're basically living on community land. Mm-hmm. And so we started working with local communities who wanted to conserve their forests, but needed assistance. And so we set up the Nakuba Conservation Area in 2012. At the time, it was about 270 square miles. Over the last decade, we've expanded it. It's now 500 square miles, which is about 15 times the size of Manhattan.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, so it's these communities, we work with them. We hire them. So they're the ones that are out in the forest protecting the gorillas every day. And it's a huge area. It's like 10 times the size of all of the mountain gorilla habitat that's left in Rwanda. It's enormous. But we're out studying these animals. Very little is known about them, protecting them, removing snares from the forest, and at the same time working to support the local communities. And so what we announced yesterday that was really exciting, I'll get to the punchline, is that this forest has now been officially recognized by the Congolese government as being owned by these communities. So they've had their official land right given to them. And now they can go forward working with us to manage this as a community forest that's protecting biodiversity as well as these incredible trees, that are part of the forest itself.
And you guys have a 25-year agreement with them to
Yes.
work with them. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome news.
It's
Cool.
awesome news. So it actually increases the amount of forest that's kind of protected in this region by 70%. So again, a lot of this forest is still not protected, and luckily it's still intact, but we know that these forests gradually are being reduced in size because of agriculture and other practices. So getting it protected now is really important to its sustainability in the long term.
Right. That's wonderful. Chat, if you guys have questions about this, I didn't say it at the beginning of the podcast. You can do #ask followed by your question. They'll go to a doc. We only have a few so far, but if you have questions, go ahead and use that bot. We've gotten a lot of donations too. So I know you guys had that $50,000 match campaign. How much are you guys at? Are you still missing an amount, or did you hit that 50K?
We did hit that 50K
Great.
late last night, which was great
that's
news.
awesome.
Yeah, it
Good.
was wonderful. I mean, to me, one of the conservation can be really heavy at times because there isn't really a lot of great news out there. I mean, when we look at 1 million species threatened with extinction, gorillas being high amongst them, they estimate we've lost 70% of mammal populations in the last 50 years. So a lot of times you're dealing with just really heavy subject material. So when you get to celebrate like an announcement like this, and then see people really rally around wanting to support the kind of work that we do, it's just, it really gives you just an incredible feeling.
Right.
It's one of those, it's a great day.
That's awesome. So we have some more donations that have come in that I didn't mention yet. So let's see. SK with $20, Leonard with $10, Jato with $25, Investin with $3, and Eden with $200. We're actually at $920 total so far for the podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
we're amazing.
We're very close to our 1K goal, guys. Thank you so much for donating. Again, those donations are going straight to the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. Today they're hooked up to my account. So that's wonderful. That'll go to you guys. And can you tell them a little bit more about what those donations do, how those help support you guys?
Yeah, they will go directly into supporting, these teams in Africa. Like I said, we have about 220 staff, and they are in the forest 365 days a year. So we use, we're a nonprofit, obviously, so all of our support comes from donations, and all of that goes towards paying staff salaries, paying for the equipment that they need. The conditions that they work under are incredibly challenging. So they need boots, they need rain gear, they need uniforms, they need backpacks, all the equipment that they need, all the scientific, we collect data on iPads on the gorillas. We have GPS units to track where they're ranging. So the money goes to support all of that work in the field to protect the gorillas. And then the stuff I mentioned earlier in terms of helping local communities. Our projects reach, even though we're not a humanitarian organization, we impact the lives of about 15,000 people a year through our education and food security initiatives. So it all goes directly to making a difference on the ground for the gorillas and the people that they share their home with.
That's so neat. So there you guys go. There's a little bit more information there. Thank you. I just said SK, so appreciate that. Would you mind if we got into some of the questions? Because people have started asking.
I'd love to.
Okay,
I'd love
perfect.
to. Like literally my favorite thing in the world to do is talk about gorillas. So please ask me any questions because I love it. And I spend less time doing it now than I used to when I was working in my scientific capacity. So I love to share stories about gorillas.
Good. Okay, you're in the right place then, because they're all about gorillas. So one was Dixie asked why specifically in Rwanda. You talked about that a little bit.
Yes. So I can also just say that. So Dian Fossey actually went originally to Congo to study. That's the only place that mountain gorillas have been studied before. And she went there originally. And then there was a civil war that broke out in Congo and she got kicked out of the country. So if you watch Gorillas in the Mist, you'll see that she has this aha moment where she's like, oh, gorillas don't know borders, because the mountain gorilla habitat actually straddles 3 countries. They are at the tippy top of 6 volcanoes, surrounded by one of the highest human population densities in Africa.
Oh
So
my gosh.
literally it's like this tiny forest with, it's the opposite of growers. Growers gorillas, we have tons of forest left, but they're not protected. Mountain gorillas, they live at the top of these volcanoes. So she realized the gorillas don't know borders, so they go back and forth. So she moved to Rwanda and established her research center in Rwanda. So luckily she didn't give up when she got kicked out.
Yeah, no kidding. My gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see more. So Feels Timmy asked, what anti-poaching measures will you be taking on all this new land?
Yeah, so we are in the forest, as I mentioned, every day. And so the biggest thing we do, also in Rwanda, we have teams that actually go out and look for evidence of illegal activities. So they go and remove snares. If they see signs that people are in the forest, we GPS that and we share all of that with the park authorities. So that those teams are in there every single day. And luckily in Rwanda, people don't hunt mountain gorillas. So when Dian Fossey was there, actually poaching was a huge problem, but that has gone away. But people do go into the forest to hunt antelope or other animals, and they put snares down, which are basically just, like rope traps that, when an animal walks through, it gets its leg or its arm caught in.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the gorillas can get caught in those, and it can cause injury or even death. And I have some good snare stories about gorillas later that I can tell. So our teams are out there every day doing that in Rwanda, and then they do the same thing in Congo. Unfortunately, in Congo, though, people do directly hunt gorillas. So we're in there removing snares, but we also are just doing a lot of educating people about, gorillas are endangered species. It's illegal to hunt them in Congo, making sure they know the laws. A lot of times they might not be aware of the laws that are in place. So a lot of it is just education, and then providing them other things to eat so they don't need to go into the forest to find their food.
Right. So the hunting then on gorillas is for meat primarily,
yeah,
not
for food.
trophy. Okay.
No, not trophy. No, luckily they're not trophy hunted at all anymore.
Okay, awesome. And then it's an interesting question. Spiderland asked, what's their social structure like? I know it's a question with a lot of layers, but
yeah. So they're fascinating. And it really, like, there's no one. So there's a couple of things. There's no one social structure for gorillas, like across the 4 types. And then even within gorillas, particularly the mountain gorillas, they're super flexible. So in general, if you kind of look in general, gorillas tend to live in what we call a harem group. So it's usually one adult male, multiple females, and then their offspring. And groups might average about 10 individuals. Mountain gorillas are kind of the exception to that, and it's one of the reasons why they're so fun to study. So they can live in groups that have multiple adult males. We've had groups that had up to 8 adult males in them, which is really unusual. The groups can also be a lot larger. So we've had a group, the largest group ever of gorillas ever recorded was 65, and that was Pablo's group, which is still in existence today. It's just shrunk a lot now. It's I think it's in the high 20s or low 30s.
Oh, cool.
But so they have these really flexible social structures, and the strongest bond is between a mom and her kid, and that bond can last throughout their lifetime. But males and females also form really strong bonds and can have relationships that last multiple decades. And then a paper that we just recently published showing that if a kid loses its mom for some reason, it will be the whole group will come around and support it. And in particular, the silverback, the dominant male, will let that infant sleep with him, walk with him, feed with him, and really provides him kind of a buffer. And as a result, even if they lose their moms, they still manage to do quite well, which, is a lot like human society. And we actually don't see that in other groups like chimps or elephants or even killer whales that have, are highly intelligent, highly social animals. If you lose your mom, even after you're weaned, you tend to actually have a shorter lifespan. You're less successful in reproduction, but that is not the case for gorillas. And I just think it's this really strong social structure that they have. And the fact in particular that the dominant male, the silverback, really takes these kids under his wing, even if they're not related to him too. We've done the genetics. They don't have to be his offspring.
That's so
Just they were
interesting.
born in the group. Yeah, we have one male. The adult male in the group passed away, and there were
Hmm.
4 motherless juveniles in that group. And we had another adult male that adopted all 4 of them,
Oh
and he
my
wasn't their
gosh.
dad. Yeah, but they're phenomenal. They're great.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you for that question, Spiderland. That was a good one. So Alyssa asked, what exactly is the biggest threats to gorillas? So we talked about poaching a little bit, hunting for
Hmm.
meat, no longer
Hmm.
trophy hunting. Is
Hmm.
habitat loss? What else are they facing?
Yeah, so again, it kind of depends what type of gorilla you're looking at. So for
Mm-hmm.
mountain gorillas, the biggest threat is their small population size. There's 1,000 of them left on the planet. They're located in only 2 small forests. So they have very little habitat left. Their population size is very small. And so one natural disaster, one disease outbreak could really be devastating.
Hmm.
As I mentioned, luckily they're not hunted, and their habitat isn't shrinking anymore, but it's already really, really small. For the other 3 types of gorillas, the biggest challenge is direct poaching. So poaching is happening. Habitat loss is obviously a concern, but direct poaching is the real problem. And so that's why getting these populations protected is critically important.
Okay, nice. And then Nightmare has asked, how did you fall in love with gorillas? What was your first experience with
Mhm.
them?
That's a great question. So I always wanted to work with animals from the time I was a kid. I thought I was going to be a vet because that's kind of what I knew that you could do with animals. I went to college and prepared to go to vet school and went and did a master's in biology and had the opportunity to go and be a volunteer for someone working on their PhD in Africa. And I went to Zimbabwe for the first time. We were studying jackals. I never saw them. They were nocturnal. They had radio collars on. So we just like had this equipment and followed these little beeps around. I had no idea how cold sub-Saharan Africa can be in their winter. Like we were out from 6 at night till 6 in the morning, and it
Mm-hmm.
would be freezing. But I loved every minute of it. And so I decided to change and instead of doing medicine, do behavior. And really kind of fell into gorillas in the sense that that wasn't, the goal from the time I was a kid. The program that I worked with had a very strong tie to gorillas, and the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund is based here. And so I knew I wanted to go back to Africa, linked up with this organization because I had experience with primates in the past and have, loved every minute of it. And if I can tell the story of my first time of being with gorillas in the
Please,
wild,
yes.
I had studied them in zoos for a bit, and then I went to study them in the wild. And I study male gorilla behavior, so that's what I'm most interested in. So I was fascinated to go to Shinda's group because Shinda was one of these groups that had 8 adult males. So I'm in the group, and Shinda was every gorilla has its own personality, and Shinda was like very authoritarian, not the nicest of guys. And so he instantly recognized me as someone new and wanted to put me in my place. So he charged, and I got down on the ground and was being very small. And I had my hair up in a ponytail, and he was sniffing me, like sniffing my head, and like I could literally feel the hairs on the back of my neck, like going up and down as he was like smelling my neck. And the guys
Oh,
were like, "Don't worry, Tara, he's just smelling you." But I could just imagine this like enormous male gorilla, these jaws poised over, my spinal
uh-huh.
column. And then, he was like, okay, she's fine, and moved on. So that was quite a dramatic experience, dramatic introduction to gorillas.
Oh
So
my gosh, that's
yeah,
crazy. So you
yeah.
guys do get very close to them out there.
So the Growers gorillas, we do not. So
Mm,
we follow them one day behind.
okay.
We don't want them to lose their fear of humans because they are hunted.
Mm-hmm.
But we can still learn lots of interesting things. Gorillas make nests. Every single gorilla makes a nest every night.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find their nest spot. You can count how many nests are there. You can
Oh.
even tell, like, by the size of the nest and the size of the dung in the nest, like if it's a silverback's nest or if it's a younger individual. We collect those fecal samples, and we can do genetics, we can do parasite work, we can do hormone work. We can find feeding remains, so we can tell. In fact, we just published a paper on what Growers gorillas eat. No one
Mm-hmm.
really knew very much about it. So all that's without, and how they range using GPS. All of that is without ever seeing them. In Rwanda, though, the animals have been habituated. So that means basically they've lost their fear of humans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Dian Fossey did so many years ago. So there we can actually be in the group, and we can record these incredibly dynamic social interactions. So that makes it fascinating, in addition to all the other data I just mentioned. But the big thing is that because gorillas share 98% of our DNA, they are susceptible to the same type of respiratory viruses that we are.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, what can just make us a little sick can be deadly in them. So we very much try and stay 7 meters away. That's the recommended distance.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the gorillas don't have like a measuring stick. So like in the case of
Mm-hmm.
Shinda, he, approached me and you can't run.
Right.
But we really do our best to try and just be a treat, just like another piece of furniture or another piece of the environment and stay away from them because it is a big risk. And like gorillas can get COVID-19. So really we're doing a lot of work right now to make sure that we're not bringing any risk of, have any risk of bringing COVID-19 to the gorillas themselves.
Yeah, that's so scary.
Yep,
with
it
that
really
population
is.
size.
Yep.
Choke tip $5, Mac tip $5, Wallace with 10, and Major Bonnet with 20. Thank you so much. If you'd like to donate, your donations are going to the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund today. We're here talking to Dr. Tara Stoinski, who's the CEO and president and chief scientific officer of the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. So we're talking about that today if you're just showing up. Okay, a lot of people have questions about what your reaction was to Wall Street bets. Reddit to that whole thing.
It was amazing. I mean, it was like, again, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Like, I eat, breathe, and sleep gorillas.
Uh-huh.
I do it. I've been doing that, for a long time. And so the support that community showed, and I'm not on Reddit. So a friend of mine got in touch and said, hey, this is happening on Wall Street Bets. Someone adopted a gorilla, and now lots of people are doing it. And so I went and looked, and I was like, this is phenomenal. And to have that kind of support come in, and it was really hard because I was actually going to Rwanda like right as it happened.
Uh-huh.
So I'm on the plane, like trying to connect with my team so we can like send messages and I can hear what's going on. And being able to tell the folks in Africa, like, look at this incredible support that this community has provided. It was amazing. It was definitely like one of my most fun weeks, with this organization.
Yeah, so cool. Conch, thank you for the 33. Michael Dobbins is here too. Hi. So
hey,
I remember he called me and told me about it. Chat, for context, if you don't know what we're talking about, r/Wall Street Bets, I think they have this motto that's like apes together strong or something. So they just started adopting gorillas, and then everybody thought it was cool. And then Dian, designed a shirt for them, a limited time merch line for that event, and then Danny and Max, I think it was just Danny and Max, did a video or helped them with a video as well. And how much did you guys end up raising from that unplanned campaign?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that was the best part too. It was just so spontaneous, and everyone wanted to engage, and we raised over $400,000.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's so cool.
Yeah.
There you go. So Reddit chat. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So that answers a lot of those questions. A lot of people came in asking about that. Let's see, what else are there?
Yeah. And just to throw out there too, like the fun thing about the adopts is like a lot of times you can do an adopt program, but it's kind of you're adopting a animal at large. Like these are actual gorillas that we see every single day. So I actually just sent out an email yesterday, like with an update, like, here's what's happening. Here's some video footage that we captured of these individual gorillas that people adopt. So, the money is helping to protect, them and their families. So I think that part of it's really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. We had SJ with $10, Rodney with $7, and Koopa Steve with $77. Thank you so much.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Here's a cool question here. So Choke asked, what role do they play in the ecosystem?
Fabulous question. And we talk about this a lot because I was talking about the Congo Basin being second largest tropical rainforest on the planet. And so it's critically important, not just because it's an amazing place, but it's one of our best natural defenses against climate change, because rainforests are carbon sinks. So they take in carbon dioxide. So they actually remove greenhouse gases from the earth and from the atmosphere. And so, the role of gorillas and elephants and a lot of these all animals have a role, but particularly a lot of these larger animals is they're like environmental engineers or the gardeners of the forest. So by, ripping down plants, they're kind of creating gaps where sunlight can come in. When they eat fruits and then, move on and defecate, they're spreading seeds and they're putting it in a nice pile of fertilizer so it can grow. So these animals are critically important ultimately for, the health of these ecosystems. And then they also serve, I think, as great umbrella species. So it's kind of hard sometimes to get people excited about a frog or about, some small rodent, to conserve that. But if you conserve gorillas and you conserve their forest, then you're providing safe haven, hopefully for all of those species that are found in there. So they have a direct ecological role as well as, I think, a very symbolic role of people care about them and connect with them, and that makes them want to help conserve their forest home.
Right. I remember we talked to Robin a little bit. I think people underestimate how much foliage it takes to for those gorillas to eat because they're massive. It's crazy.
Massive. Yeah. I mean, what's amazing to me is they're born at 4 pounds and those males grow to 400 pounds and they're complete vegetarians. So the males will eat like 50 to 60 pounds of food a day. I mean, they just kind of they live in a big salad bowl and they're just shoveling it in all day long.
Yeah, that's crazy. Look at that. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. Velu Dude asked, how does one gorilla become a silverback?
I get that question a lot. So silverback is just the term for an adult male. So all 4 types of gorillas have silverback. So it's just a process of maturation. So males and females, at least in mountain gorillas, and we know this because we do these super cool, what we call them photogrammetry studies. So we have these cameras and then we have these small lasers and we put the lasers on the gorillas. So we'll put the laser on their arm. It doesn't hurt them or anything. And we know how far apart these laser dots are. And then we take photos and we can go back into the lab and pull up those photos and actually measure the gorillas. Because how else do you measure, a 400-pound gorilla? They're not going to walk up and let you say oh, let's see how big your back is. Let's take a tape measure. So we know from these, and when you photograph them time after time after time, we can create a growth chart, just like, we have for humans. When I had my girls, I was always like, okay, where are they on the growth chart?
Right.
But we know that males and females are basically the same size up until about the age of 8. And then they diverge. Females really slow down their growth rate, and they reach adult size around 12. And then males will keep really growing, and at 15 roughly reach their adult size. And somewhere between 12 and 15, the hair on their back will change color. It'll go from black to silver.
Okay.
So when they're in that teenage year, we call them blackbacks. And then once they reach kind of adult, they'll get that silverback. Their head gets really big. They've got that huge crest on their head, which is where all their jaw muscles attach. And the reason for that, I mean, they eat a vegetarian diet. They eat the same thing as female gorillas. So all of that musculature is for them to defend their families. So it's all about rival competition between males. It's not because, they're out hunting and need that for food. It's really about protecting their families. And we actually just published 2 really cool papers, one showing that for males, size really matters. So doing all these measurements, we were able to show that bigger males are more successful. They are more likely to become dominant and they're more likely to be reproductively successful. Whereas for female gorillas, size does not matter at all. So we have super dominant females that are just average in size. So there's other factors. We're not really sure what those are yet, but there's other factors that contribute to whether or not a female is dominant. So that's kind of the cool stuff that we can study, using these new technologies that have come out.
Yeah. Danny, thank you for the 1690. I appreciate it. A couple people have also asked while we're talking about that, what is the lifespan, or does it differ between the 4? Or...
Yeah, so it's a great question. And to be honest, we don't really know for the other. I mean, mountain gorillas are really the only gorillas that have been studied so intensively. We assume the other gorillas would be similar, but we don't actually have great data from the wild because they're so difficult to study and there aren't habituated populations. But for mountain gorillas, males can live into their, late 30s. Our oldest male, I think he was 38. That was Cantsby, the one I was talking about earlier.
Wow.
And I still have a great story to tell about him. And then females can live to be in their early 40s. But what's amazing is in a zoo setting, they can live a lot longer. So they can live to be in their 50s, even in their 60s. So clearly living, I think a lot of people tend to think of life in the wild as being idyllic, but it's stressful to live in the wild. I mean, these animals are not dying because someone's killing them. That's just their lifespan, because it's a much harder life in the wild.
Yeah, of course. Koala, thank you for the $50. That's another interesting segue. A couple people have asked if you guys have benefited from any research done through zoos. A couple people have asked about Coco as well and about sign language. Do you want to talk a little bit about captivity setting?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, to be honest, Well, for example, one thing that has happened is the gorillas so we've always, since the beginning of the pandemic, have said, it's not a matter of if the gorillas get COVID, because we knew they had a genetically identical receptor system to us, but it's a matter of when they get COVID and what's it going to look like. Is it going to look similar to humans, or is it going to be a lot more severe? And actually, gorillas at the San Diego Zoo are the only known ones that have gotten COVID-19. And so they did a lot of really great work there studying how the gorillas reacted to it. That definitely can help inform us for, protecting them in the wild. But I would say it's really the opposite, that a lot of the studies that have happened in the wild have really helped inform how to best house gorillas. So, for example, back in the 70s, they used to house them in male-female pairs, which is not how they live in the wild. And females really need, because those males are twice the size of a female, they need other female allies to help them kind of, put the male in his place when if he's not behaving. And so those were just not great social units. And so looking to what people like Dian Fossey were finding about gorilla social structure in the wild helped captive settings, house them in a much better way than they had previously.
Okay, very cool. And then, people have also asked about Coco the gorilla and sign language. Is that something that you want to talk about now, or do you want me to keep going down questions? I'm fine with either.
Sure. I mean, Coco was extremely interesting. Those were studies. There were a number of them that started in the 70s, and they were looking at, language capabilities. And so there was an orangutan whose name was Shantek, who was taught sign language, Coco, and then there have been a number of chimps that were taught it as well. So most of those studies are, not ongoing anymore, and Coco died a few years ago now. But yeah, I mean, certainly, I think, again, just gave us insights into how a gorilla's mind works. And, people were fascinated by that story. And that's what we want to do is, help people to realize how cool these animals are. And the hopes is that will come, translate into them wanting to help conserve them.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for those questions. I think that pretty much covers the people that asked stuff related to that. A hard question that they always ask: do you have a favorite kind of gorilla?
Whew, yeah. I mean, I have to say it's the mountain gorillas. And even within the mountain gorillas, there are the two populations I mentioned. So there's the windy population. That's a population of about 400 that are found in Uganda. And then there's the Virunga population, which is where we work, which live in those three countries I mentioned, Uganda, Congo, and Rwanda. And even there, they're only like 30 miles apart, but they look really different because the Virunga ones live at even higher elevations. So they live at 9,000 feet, 10,000, 12,000 feet. So they're super hairy, just because it's cold up there. They're really black, I think, to get a lot of the sun's the radiation to keep them warm. And so they look even different than the same subspecies that's located just 30 miles away, but at a lower elevation. And so I have to say that over time I've become really biased, and I think that they are the most beautiful, but all gorillas.
Of course, that's great. Hercules to $50, Ivy with $487, and Koala with $50. We're at $1,210 in donations right now. So thank you guys so much. And then another interesting question: do you have a favorite experience with a gorilla in the wild, or an interaction with a gorilla that's memorable and you want to tell us about?
Yeah. So this isn't my interaction, but it is my favorite story, and I was alluding to it earlier, so I'll tell that. So it's about Cansby, this incredible male. And I can't remember if I've said this already, but his Dian Fossey had misidentified his mom as a male. And so when he was born, she said, well, this can't be. And so that's how he got his name, Cansby. Oh. And yeah, isn't that great?
That's cute.
Because remember, like between, under the age of 8, you really can't tell males and females apart. They look exactly alike. So he became dominant in about 1995. He was the dominant male of Pablo's group. He had the longest reign ever. He was dominant until about 2017. The group grew to 65 individuals, and the role of the male a lot of times is to babysit. So when the kids become for the first, 6 months, the moms really don't put the kids down ever, and they're fully responsible. And then at 6 months, the kids might toddle off a little bit. And then by about a year, they start to get a little bit more independent, still are always traveling, on their mom, but they will, walk around and they'll leave their mom's side. And at that point, they'll start sometimes spending time with a silverback. So it's not uncommon to see him, like we call babysitting, with all these kids around. So one day Cansby is there and he's got all these kids around. The moms are off foraging. And every time a kid approached him, he would do this aggressive vocalization called a pig grunt. Just, it goes like, and it's kind of the equivalent of like in humans when we're like,
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a warning, like, okay, leave me alone. You're doing something wrong. And so the kids kind of like, gave him this wide berth and wouldn't go near him. And so our researcher was curious as to what was happening. So she's like, is something wrong? She got a little bit closer and he did the same thing to her. So she said, okay, maybe he doesn't feel well. He's having a bad day. I'm going to back off. So after a while, the group moved on and she went to follow them. And it turned out that Cansby was sitting next to a snare. So by doing this vocalization, he kept all of these kids away from the snare. And the researcher also really felt in that moment that he was keeping, when he did that vocalization to her, that he was really keeping her away from that snare as well. So like literally every time I tell that story, I get goosebumps because I just think it's, it's just amazing. And it shows their incredible intelligence, empathy, and just, how much they protect and look out for each other.
That's amazing. That's crazy. Mex tip $50 and Enchanter tip $290. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
So $1,550. I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions here. One of them, this is a really interesting question. Panthera, interesting name, asked, has there ever been any research on the effectiveness of gorilla lungs compared to humans, since most of them live at a higher altitude than humans?
I don't know the answer to that question.
That's a pretty good question.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, I don't know either.
I will tell you that when I go there, so, when I go out with our teams, like I can just tell they're like, oh my goodness, is she really coming with us? Because I'm so slow in comparison because, we're up at 9,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 feet. And, I'm used to living at a much lower elevation. And it is really incredible. So I would think the gorilla's lungs are pretty impressive because they're also hauling around 400 pounds in addition to being at these high elevations.
There you go. Very cool. And then another one, Riz asked, do they have any predators, I guess, besides humans?
So occasionally leopards might be able to take a gorilla. And leopards are very active hunters of chimps in certain areas. But again, this social structure of really being very tightly bonded. Chimps live in what we call a fusion society. So they have like a community, but every day is different. So like today, chimp A and B might be together. And then tomorrow, chimp A is on their own. And then they're with chimps D, E, and F. And the reason for that is chimps rely a lot on fruit. And so if you think about it, if you're a large chimpanzee and you come across a fruit tree and you have a community of 30 chimps and you all run up the tree, you're going to run out of fruit pretty quickly. So they have these much smaller, like foraging parties, they call them. And they're also a lot smaller in body size than gorillas. And so the fact that you might be on your own, as well as you're a lot smaller, they can be preyed on by leopards. It's been reported in gorillas that it's happened, but it's incredibly rare. And I think it's A, their size, and B, they live in these much more cohesive units. So you've always got the silverback around to protect you or other group members around to protect you. So unfortunately, we always say that we are their biggest threat, but we also are their biggest hope. And, people like you who are interested in them and donating, I mean, that's the hope, is that working together, that's one of the things I love about the mountain gorilla story. These animals didn't go extinct. The population where we work was down to 250 individuals in the 1980s when Dian was there. And now it's just over 600. And that's because of the incredible work of the government, but also because people have been supporting conservation organizations like ours to do that important work on the ground. So we can make a difference when we work together, and we don't have so many examples of that in conservation. So it's something that really gives me a lot of confidence that we can do it for other species and do it for the growers, gorillas, and other animals too.
That's awesome. And then a couple people, I don't think we've talked about this. I think this is our 3rd time supporting Dian Fossey, but I don't know that we've talked about the Ellen Fund from 2018. Could you tell us a little bit about that? This is Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah. So it was another one of those like amazing moments where we used to be, when Dian was there, she was based up in the forest. And then Rwanda had a civil war in the 90s. And since then, we haven't been based in the forest. So our teams in Rwanda, they go in and out every single day, whereas in Congo, they're in the forest full time. But we operated out of a one rented house. And then as we grew, we had two rented houses. And then now we rent like a kind of an office building in town, which we've outgrown. And so we made the strategic decision that we really wanted to build a permanent home. Like right now, we use an old kitchen to analyze poop samples. And we have one lab and we have one classroom. And we work with more than 500 university students from Rwanda every single year. So we made the decision that we wanted to build a permanent home. We wanted to move back up near the park. So we're not in the park, but near the park, near all the communities that we work with, closer to the gorillas, and really build kind of like a campus where we could have, biodiversity on site. We could replant a lot of native species and be able to have students on site and educate them there. So we made this decision. We had found an architect to start thinking about it. And then we had this opportunity where, Portia de Rossi wanted to give this wonderful birthday present to her wife and decided that they would invest in this, advancement of our mission. So they made a lead gift for the campus, which we've been working on now for the last, 3 years. And we hope will open up later this year. So it's going to be absolutely amazing. And if you go to our website or our YouTube page, like there's information about it, but there's also a lot of just really cool videos. It's gorgeous. I mean, we're planting 250,000 native species to form our agricultural land. We have a constructed wetland, which will process all the wastewater on the campus. So it's just a series of beautiful ponds, but that actually cleans the water.
Yeah.
We have green roofs. Obviously, we're doing water collection, so it's this, and it'll be a great place to bring local communities who can't go into the park. They're not allowed into the park. So we can bring them on site and show them all these species of plants that the gorillas eat. Or, hopefully we hope we'll have lots of birds and insects that will want to come and live in this biodiverse, rich area that we can use as educational tools for communities. So we're really excited.
That's amazing. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And that's in Rwanda, correct?
That's in Rwanda.
Very cool.
And I always tell people, I'm like, if you would have told me when I was in grad school to study animal behavior that I would be building a campus halfway around the world during a global pandemic, I would have been like, you're absolutely crazy. And yet, here I am. So it's always exciting kind of to see where life takes you.
That's amazing. Dog, thank you for the $10. We're at $1,560 flat. Thank you guys so much for your donations. The last question that I like to finish up with, and a couple people have asked it, is if the people that are watching are not necessarily biologists or wildlife biologists, conservationists even, what can they do from home to support the conservation of gorillas?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question that I get asked a lot. And, I think there's a lot of things. It is hard because really what we need to do to conserve gorillas is just protect them and protect their forest home. And that just means we need resources to be in the field. So obviously supporting an organization, like the Fossey Fund or others that are doing great work is so critical. But I think, I find when I talk to people, a lot of people have no idea that gorillas are critically endangered, that we're at risk of losing them. They see them on Gorilla Glue or, in other ways, and they think, okay, well, gorillas are fine. But really just educating people, making sure people, spreading the stories, letting people know. The more people that know about what's happening to gorillas and our mission or other organizations' missions, the more help we'll get, like what happened with Wall Street Vets. I think another really important thing is, using your voice with your elected leaders, making sure that we are, we're electing people that think conservation is a priority and want to help put resources to that and want to sign on to things like the Paris Climate Accord and things like that. So, voting and using your voice in that way, I think is critically important as well.
Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So that about takes it. It's 3:00 exactly. Wow. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about or tell the audience about before we close up here?
I would just like to say thanks so much for taking time out on your Friday afternoon to listen about the gorillas. I appreciate it. And again, if you like gorilla stories, please follow us on social media at Saving Gorillas. At Saving Gorillas. We, again, we post pictures and videos every single day and tell the stories of these amazing animals. So I just want to say thanks so much for your time and interest. And thank you, Maya, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. You guys can do Command.org. It'll take you to their Twitter and their Instagram. Then they're linked on my posts for today as well. So go follow them on their socials. Thank you so much for your time and for doing this last minute. I hope we can do some more stuff in the future because this has been really neat.
Definitely. Thanks again. Have a great weekend.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Bye-bye, Dr. Tara. $1,560. Thank you guys so much for donating. Thank you for watching. I know it's been a while since we've had the podcast, but it feels good. It felt good to listening to the intro song. I was like, all right, we're back. Chuck has written a quiz. So before we do the quiz, actually, can we do a poll? Do we do the poll before the quiz? I don't actually remember. Also, big hearts in chat for Dobbins for putting this together. Dobbins is the one who introduced me to Tara. Dobbins is the one who told Tara about Reddit and helped them to be able to raise the amount that they did. Got my team involved with the fund. So very cool. Thank you for being here. And Dobbins and I have a trip to plan. So we'll need to talk about that, but we'll see. Should we do the poll before the quiz? Yes, right? I feel like it's like fresh in your mind right now. Space, if you're here, let's do the poll right now. So if you weren't here at the beginning of the podcast, we did a poll that was the same question: how much do you care about the conservation of gorillas? And we had 34% gave it a 3, said they were neutral. 30% gave it a 5. 28% gave it a 4. 4% gave it a 2, and 3% gave it a 1. So the winner of the poll at the beginning of the podcast was that most people were neutral about caring about the conservation of gorillas. We're about halfway through the time for this poll, so if you want to participate in that, that'd be great. It looks really good so far. 52% right now are saying it's a 5, extremely important. So thank you. Just joined, honestly, and I'm not going to lose the quiz. Wow, respect. I like the confidence. What Friday is it of the month? Because I need to figure out, we're doing these podcasts once a month now. This is I guess we can just do like the third Friday of the month going forward. Technically this is the fourth, but we'll probably just try to do the third Friday of the month going forward. So I'm working on getting another guest today. Okay, the poll is done. Here we go. 50% gave it a 5, said it was extremely important. 42% gave it a 4. 5% gave it a 3. 3% gave it a 1. And 1% gave it a 2. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Your best content and only once a month. Honestly, it's really hard to go down to doing the podcast once a month. It's way easier in terms of my time, but the podcast is like my baby, on Twitch. But I'm glad. I was going to completely discontinue it. So actually, I think it's a lot better than what it was going to be. I was like planning a final episode and everything. And then I was like, you know what? Let's just keep doing it once a month because I want to keep connecting with organizations and organizations that fill holes and do things that Alveus cannot or does not, right? So one of the things that I love, and I'm a broken record, but I love so much about the Dian Fossey Fund is how involved they are with local communities and how once a month is good. Thank you, Dobbins. And how they're really promoting that like sustainable conservation by getting on the ground and educating people that are living with the species that they're trying to protect. It is so important. So thank you so much for supporting them today. I think that's incredible. We're going to go ahead and go to the quiz right now. Let's see if I can create it while I'm talking to you because now Chuck and I are all fancy and we do it with a CSV that cannot render. Sad. Let's find out if this works. Hold on. Bop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 20 seconds. Import questions? Upload your CSV. Oh, wait, no, it worked. It worked. Chuck. Nice. Well done. All right. So I will do my best here to read you the questions before they show up for you. You have to enable access for the quiz. You can do command quiz if you would like some more instruction on how it works. It'll take you to a page on my website. Stompy has learned how to jump out of her enclosure, and I think she just did. I don't know if you heard that, but she jumps out now. It's like this high. I mean, she can like just barely see over it, and she can jump out of it. So, anyway, confirm. I'm gonna send the quiz rules to you guys. The way that the quiz works, there are 20 seconds per question. There's 5 questions. It's just based on my conversation with Tara today. So, the way that you win is by getting the most questions right the fastest. If you get the most questions right the fastest, then if you're not subbed to my channel, I will gift you a sub to my channel. And if you are subbed, you can ask me to donate an additional $5 to our donation goal today, or I will gift you a sub anywhere on Twitch. Got it? So you need to answer the questions correctly as fast as you can. You answer the questions by clicking on the screen, not typing in chat. Just so you know, it'll pop up in just a second. Are you ready? No. Well, it's happening anyway. So get ready now. Sending rules to you guys. Are you seeing it? Is it working? Yes. Big time. All right. The first question is, which of the 4 subspecies of gorillas does the Earth Day announcement focus on? Western lowland gorillas, Growers gorillas, cross river gorillas, or mountain gorillas? Soul, that is unfortunately not the right answer. Kroby just got here, but he's going to participate in the quiz anyway because he still has a chance to win. And the correct answer is Growers gorillas. How many people got that correct? Waiting. No. 68 people got it correct, and 106 people thought that it was mountain gorillas. We did talk a lot about mountain gorillas, so that's kind of fair. But it is not the correct answer. Or not fair. I understand why you thought that. But 68 people got it right. Make sure you enable access, but don't worry if you see your number here because this is a bug and it'll probably show your number at the end if you have enabled access so that I can see your name, your username, and not just the number. The next question here. What is the size of the conservation area as of today? NCA. Is it 500 square miles, 270 square miles, 50 square miles, or 800 square miles? Oh, a lot of people are saying easy. Okay. The Nakuba Conservation Area. Well done, Squid. Yes, amazing. I did have to ask her in the test call how to pronounce that, so I didn't mess it up live. I wrote it on my little slip of paper where I write everything phonetically. The last thing that I have written on there is Sahoyas. Like Louis Sahoyas. 110 people got that right at 500 square miles. That's a lot of land. Amazing. Oh my God, Stompy, please. Squid is the only one that I can see who is in 3rd place, is in the lead right now. Actually, yeah, Squid is in the lead right now. Okay. Question number 3. There are 5 questions total. Orion, please. What is the biggest challenge to most species of gorillas in Africa? Is it a lack of food that the gorillas eat? Is it poachers for trophy hunting? Is it disease, or is it poachers for meat? For consumption of gorillas. Koopa Steve misclicked. Stealthy got baited. Lots of misclicked. People got baited. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Orion. What are you doing? The correct answer is poachers for meat. 121 people got that correct. There's not a lot of trophy hunting, if any, is what she was saying today. I think that used to be a thing and now is not. Ivory got that right the fastest, but Squid is still in the lead, followed closely by Warber and then Noah JC. 2 more questions to redeem yourselves. What is the role that gorillas play in their ecosystem? Are they decomposers? Are they scavengers? Do they scatter seeds, or are they apex predators? Well done, Chuck. That's a good well-written question. Sorry, Max. All right. The correct answer is scattering seeds. By the way, Orion's inside because it's supposed to hail today. And it's supposed to be the same as a couple weeks ago or last week. And last time there was hail here was when I was in California, and it was golf ball sized hail. So he's not going outside today, nor is Stompy, but he's not super happy about it. The correct answer is scattering seeds. 140 people got that right. Well done. They are seed dispersers. Who got that right the fastest? Alan. Then Sneak, then Squid, then James Harden. Nice. Squid is still in the lead. Nimorp is coming up. Mark is in third that I can see here. Okay. Last question. Will somebody pull ahead of Squid? Around what age do male gorillas change to silverbacks? At 20 to 25 years of age, 6 to 8 years, 12 to 15 years, or 2 to 4 years old? Do they get that silver back? Lots of people saying easy. Squid nearly misclicked. Dubicus did misclick. Nanny Bear misclicked. Nanny Bear. Ailey misclicked. Did you guys really misclick, or did you just realize that you were wrong after? The correct answer is 12 to 15 years. 166 people got that correct. Uh-oh, Squid's upset. Did somebody beat Squid? Boingo Bear comes out of nowhere. He was probably one of the numbers that we couldn't see. Boingo! Boingo, what do you want? Where is he? I don't know what color he is. Oh, Slick Sub. Let's go. Okay. I'm gifting. Slick. Boingo Bear. Tier 1. You've been gifted. Purchase successful. Amazing. Thank you so much. Who? I'm going to raid Beanans because she is live. I need to run out to the property right now. They're putting in flooring in the studio. There's a room that's going to be the studio and the reptile room and the insect arachnid room. Sweet, Ildrix. Max, thank you for the 8. So I'm going to go check on that today. I'm going to get the parrots out and then I'm going to come back. thank you so much for being here for the podcast. I know that it's been a while, but I appreciate the support. Those donations are insane. Thank you for the donations. Make sure to go follow Saving Gorillas on Instagram and Twitter, and then make sure to follow Alvea Sanctuary, because we're having our reveal week right now with releasing a new ambassador every day. So that one is going up, if it's not already up, very shortly for today, which is very exciting. You'll get to meet all of the ambassadors on May 1st, and that's when you'll name 2 of the snakes and the frog and the chicken. And then we're also doing a P.O. box for that stream as well. There's so much stuff that you guys have sent from the wish list. You can do command wish list if you want to donate anything. We have a bunch of stuff listed, so you're welcome to pick something from there. I'm going to the P.O. box the day before the 1st to pick everything up, and we're going to open them with a couple of the parrots out there, so that'll be really fun. May 1st is when that's happening. Tomorrow we have Housewives without a guest. We're starting early. I think we're starting at like 1 p.m. Is it 1 p.m. CT or PST? 1 p.m. PST, so 3 p.m. CT, I believe. 3 p.m. CT for Housewives, and then I will be live pretty much for the rest of the night then. Housewives is about 3 hours, and then I'm playing Garlic Phone. What is that? What is Garlic Phone? Is it like Pictionary? Drawing? Okay, well, I'm in some group on Twitter with like 30 women. Ray invited me to some Garlic Phone. I don't know. I'm doing it after the podcast. And after that, we got Raid Shadow Legends. So, long day tomorrow. It's not garlic. It's Gartic. I thought it was garlic. You're right. Oh my gosh, it's Gartic Phone. I would have pulled it up on Steam. I would have looked it up on Steam and been like, where is it? This does not exist. I read it as garlic. This group was started like a week ago. I thought it was Garlic Phone. Anyway, so I will see you tomorrow. It'll be kind of a long day on stream. It's not on Steam. Okay, well then I would have been screwed just overall. This is why I don't play games. This is why I don't play games with people. It gives me so much anxiety. I already have anxiety. Thank you so much for watching the podcast. This was a really big one. I want to emphasize that this podcast started pretty small. It used to be kind of hard for me to get guests. And I was just like constantly trying to find people through Twitter all the time. I had this like doc of a bunch of notes on Twitter of who I could potentially DM and ask. And there are people that didn't want to do it and whatever. And now to have the president and CEO of the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund want to come on this podcast and explore that potential on Twitch is absolutely insane. And the credibility that I have because this podcast comes from you guys being here watching it and the support that you give to it. So thank you for being here to support it. It's amazing. And Twitch is an untapped reservoir for doing good. I'll see you tomorrow.
You guys are amazing.
Twitch is an untapped reservoir for doing good. This is
Alright. Not supposed to
those of you who donate, thank you so much. It means the world to me and it means the world to those guests. It's still really important that you're here and that you're watching, and that's amazing.